what marketing is, what it takes to build a brand, we all know. We've spoken about it enough. And there is how we do it. I think a lot of what we are speaking about is the how. And that how has changed drastically, right? And it keeps changing every day. As a result of which, there is so much focus and attention being paid to the how that we've kind of lost the rigor, the thinking, the discipline that is needed behind the what of building a brand. If you cut that a layer, we also discuss saying at the heart of that what is the consumer, right? And I've done this enough in terms of whenever I've met young marketers. The consumer being discussed in the meeting rooms is very different from the consumer on the ground. We rely on analytics, data, reams of all of that. The fact of the matter is that tells us what the consumer does. It tells us how the consumer does it, but nothing tells us why the consumer did it. And at the heart of it, that is what matters. The why behind the same action can be very different. And really, when one kind of takes it another level deeper, the more things change, the more they remain the same, right? Because the external environment is so crowded, it is so dynamic, etc. All the more reason for a marketer to have absolute sharpness and clarity on thinking of what the brand is all about, what differentiates it, what makes it relevant, and in the most simple manner, how can they get that across to the consumers? And I think, therefore, the more the how gets crowded, actually, there is more need to focus on the what. But the reverse is happening. So, yeah, I mean, we'll have lots of platforms being created, but very few brands.
Completely. In fact, VARC had done a study. I guess everyone should read about it. It's a combination of the consumer psychology, like the sir said, coming from the David Kahneman think fast, think slow, or as to how consumers definitely think, and psychology helps to get purchase decisions. So VARC did a study of the last 5 years, specifically with a new set of brands. So, typically what's happening today is just the marketers or brand managers are struggling between performance and brand. There's always pressure on performance, and hence, like you said, the what is getting discounted. But the last 5-year journey on specific case studies that they have studied, it is a clear statement that if you're not spending enough on the what and building the brand, performance is not going to help you. It'll stagnate after a particular threshold. Yeah. So, yeah.
So, interestingly, that shift, I'm sorry, just because Puneeth mentioned WARC. WARC is the authority, globally, which is the World Advertising Research Center. They also publish, the top agencies and the top work, etc. So I think that shift, of course. So initially, when I'd mentioned, algos is really leading the crowd. So can you be in a world without acknowledging algos? I think that's not the case. But then the shift beyond that, because, the other perspective also is that today, if you go into Amazon, there are so many products listed, you can doctor, right, the reviews on the product. So you essentially, as a person, are reviewing the, review ratings, but you can be kind of, get a bit diluted in terms of what's your perception on the brand, right? But having said that, I think that shift is also happening in terms of core brand essence. So if you look at WARC ratings now, this is the first time in the top 5 agencies in India, in the top 5, 3 agencies out of India are the top 5 globally in terms of their creative work. And in a market which is so, there's so much of flux in terms of the, noise created by platforms. There's a variety of, categories that we have. So we are really competing in a very different market. So I think the point I'm trying to make is that shift of moving towards the brand is also happening at the same time.
So one example which was coming to my mind, right, on this topic of, brand building, is it pleasing algo or people, right? So let's take travel insurance, right? So it's a tag-on product. And so that consumption, so you book the ticket, it asks you travel product, right? Travel insurance. There, I don't know how many of consumers really get into, the detail because it's a low ticket, it's a tag-on. They just click, it's a nudge and they click it, right? So to that extent, for some of these products, I think algo really plays a very important role. If you go for an endowment plan for the same insurance, it's your life, you really go through a lot of other stuff. but the nudge with the algo gives you for that add-on.
I think I'll just go a step ahead. Actually, where you start with on the search is searching for a ticket, where you get all these options. And then the travel insurance is tied to one, right? So easy trip or clear trip or whatever that is.
I shouldn't be sounding too old, but I'm going to be. Way back when I started my career, those days, only radio and film, through which you can, and then newspaper. If you think there was no algo, there was a lot of algo there. That time, sitting with a media manager, media planner, we used to do 4,000 cinema theaters. We have to develop algo. Where the film print used to go from one theater to another through the Blitz. There is a agency called Blitz, you may be aware. They used to manage the film going from one theater to another. UP will run for 1 week in this particular theater in this Saranpur. From here, it will go to Ghaziabad. Now, all of them have to be done mathematically using Clarion Motte model. Now, if you think so, from there, suddenly television came. No, radio Vivid Bharati came in, commercial. From that, there's another algo. Now, from there to television that came in, Doordarshan came in. So you need to add. Now, if you remember, from film to television, it's like what you are just talking about, this Gen Z and all those stuff, right? And the way in which your TRPs are calculated, OTS is calculated, is so different. You're not used to that, right? New models came in. And as soon as the television, commercial channel 1992, 93, suddenly new models, right? Which channel to use, then you become targeted, right? This particular audience. Now, what I'm saying is that what you are talking about algo, the brand building didn't change. All the companies kept in pace with how do you deal with the new algos. And then the internet came and it blasted, right? So frankly, in my opinion, algos are not it's a new way to deal with, but the brand building will not change.
It's just technology powered to make it easier.
And
technology powered.
With due respect, what has happened, and Puneeth will agree, is today, if we have to make the same plan, you just send an email to all your suppliers. You will get, in the next half an hour or maybe 45 minutes, and you want to build on it, you can call them to your office. So just send an email to Google, Meta, and Amazon, and bing, you've got a plan. Almost just broadly speaking, right? So.
Yeah, I think just a thought on this one, and just echoing a little bit of what both of you said. I believe the most important part that marketing does is a lot of us talked about the comms and the go-to-market. I think the biggest part before that marketing, even if before you create the first proposition that you're putting across, is when I think marketing does is what is the problem that you're trying to solve and what are you in the business of? And most of that is not about the pipes and the glitz per se. So there are two parts to it. I think we're dealing with which is the animal that we're dealing with. For 5,000 years, right? Those things haven't changed, and for another 2,000, they're not going to change, right? We all like to be loved. We want to blend in to reduce our risk. We all want to also stand out because of various reasons and so on and so forth. So some core parts of what you said, the what, I think, and what happens in a storm, right? When you have a big storm, you try to anchor your business onto something. So businesses which are anchored onto something very, very strong, simple, and unchanging stay strong per se. Then there is the other part of it, which is technology, how we are dealing with mediums, etc., is possibly changing with, as you said, how of the decision making, how attention is being got from consumers, how people are forming heuristics and taking decisions. That how is changing very rapidly. So in that sense, I think we've got to be slightly schizophrenic about this. I think the digital companies have done a fabulous job from a B2B marketing point of view. So anybody who worth their salt, who doesn't say that the world is changing and it is VUCA ka whatever is the next word, you are suddenly supposedly out of date, right? They're framing that really well, that this is all there is to it, per se. However, I think there is one part that you need to be very strongly anchored into stuff which is completely unchanging, right? If you're talking about insurance, yeah, why is insurance, while I think all the performance marketing that has happened, or per se, why is insurance 2% of the country? Because somewhere we planted a product which was taken from the West and made for people like us and sold it per se. So that basic insight work, how to tap onto that, I think that's in fact, that's 70% of marketing. That hasn't changed, right? Dealing with people and figuring out those human insights and human truths, that we need to, I think, really hold on to. The path to purchase in terms of how people are making decisions, how attention is getting locked, what we are paying attention to, what are sources today, TV to radio to cinema to digital to the now, I think, 24/7 phones and to chat GPTs. I think that's changing, evolving very, very rapidly. So at one level, we've got to be very strongly anchored to the real unchanging human truths. At the other end, we've got to be really sharp about making sure that the go-to market and what format it is getting postured is right. You can't say one or the other kind of stuff. So I think our marketing jobs are, everybody would, outside marketing would tend to believe that the only thing that we do is comms. So storytelling is the only thing that we do. I think listening is 70% of the job, and figuring out the insights and framing those insights and human truths per se, I think is 70% of the job. I think oftentimes the one place where the CA in our organization turns and asks us as to the money, that becomes the bigger discussion. And what the Googles and Metas of the world would rather have you believe that if you're not onto it, you're suddenly lost the plot kind of stuff. So I think that FOMO aside, I think we've got to be really, to create lasting enterprises and brands, deep human truths to today's pipes and go to market and paths to purchase, because that is also changing.